Hi there. So today we're going to talk about with Sam Neffendorf, is
Hi
your
there.
job making you sick and what you can do about it? The first thing I want to say is if any of you either watched the video from yesterday or were there live yesterday when I did a Facebook Live interview with Amma, my internet just totally went out in the middle. So if there are some tech issues, just hang in there with us. And we've kind of made a backup plan before we went live this morning. So just hang in there if there's some kind of technical issues. And I just wanted to say, so my name's Connie. I help people love Mondays. And I noticed that today there's this huge snowstorm coming through the northeast of the United States where I am. So I'm hoping that a lot of you can actually join us today because maybe it's a snow day and you still have your internet, fingers crossed. And so it's great to have you here. You know, as Sam is talking this morning, we're probably going to go for about 30 or 40 minutes. And as we're talking, feel free to post any questions you have. You know, are you having symptoms at work, you know, or just health symptoms that maybe you hadn't even thought were connected to your job, right? So really common ones. And when people come to me, people who don't love Mondays and they come to me, they, you know, they're experiencing stress on some level. They may be really drained at the end of the day. They may be not sleeping well. It could be that they have some kind of chronic situation health-wise that is, it could be caused by their work. Perhaps they hadn't thought about that. But many people who like had a chronic issue of some kind and then they start a job and start feeling a lot of stress in that job, it actually makes that condition worse. So that might be a symptom. Migraines, headaches are really common. And then often people get anxious and depressed. And unfortunately, that's really common. That was my particular story. If you haven't read my book, you can actually get it at the I Help People Love Mondays.com website. But I tell my crash and burn story where I was a broker in financial services and that job just no longer resonated with me. It was totally out of alignment with my values. And so I totally crashed and burned. And the way it looked for me, I'm like this really healthy person. The way it looked for me is that I got really depressed. And that was pretty scary because I'd always had great health and always taken really good care of myself. So if that's you, you're in the right place. I'm sorry if you're not feeling well, but just know that we're going to give you, actually, Sam has some really great, fun, and effective tools to help you think about how to kind of get out of that situation and actually take steps today. So Sam, thanks so much for being here. I'm going to read your bio.
Pleasure.
So I don't mess it up. So Sam breaks people out of the lifelong trances, behavior patterns, and beliefs that are keeping them sick and stuck. As a meta health coach, emotional freedom technique trainer, and matrix re-imprinting practitioner, he inspires people to stand up for themselves, reach new levels of health, and realize their potential to have an amazing life. He is the creator of Bust Out of Your Money Box, a home study course that teaches how to recognize and release your blocking beliefs about money and then create a thriving, wealthy life on your own terms. He believes that now is an amazing time to move beyond whatever is keeping you stuck. I totally agree with that. So that you can create the life you want, make a difference in the world, and play your part in building an amazing future. And his website, I know, Sam, you're going to share another link with us later, but
Yes.
Your link that I have right here is eftnow.co.uk. So it's Emotional Freedom Technique, eftnow.co.uk. Perfect. So, Sam, can you just tell us a little bit about, you know, how I talked a little bit about this a second ago, right? But how can your work make you sick? Like, what's that connection?
Okay. I think most people would be aware that your work can make you sick, and it's something that people say quite a lot. Oh, this is making me ill. And even if you go to the doctors, to the general practitioner, often they can say something like, yes, you're ill because of stress. and the stress they can relate back, where it might be something that's happening at work, it could be something happening in a relationship or any other area of life. But that's kind of where they leave it. This is happening as a result of stress. Now, stress isn't a cause. It has follow-on effects, but stress isn't a cause. It's actually a symptom of something else. So it's a symptom in its own right. So you actually need to look at what's causing that stress. And there can be many different kinds of stress, and they will be caused by different factors in your life. That can either be shocking and surprising events that are happening to you recently, or it could be something like that happened to you a long time ago, and then it gets triggered by something that's happening in your life now, say something happening at work. Now, one example of that could be someone who has a lot of anxiety at work, and when their boss walks into the room, their boss is just a normal guy or whatever, but they get triggered by it because he might speak with a lot of banter, he might wind them up a little bit. That's his way. The other employees get the same treatment. Maybe it doesn't affect them the same way, but this person had some things happen to them when they were younger. Maybe perhaps they were picked on by an older sibling, or at school something happened to them. So when this authority figure comes in, they get the shivers down their spine. They're worried that they're going to get picked on. And of course, the way the reticular activating system works and the law of attraction. So they start to build this self-fulfilling prophecy, and over time that can build either into a physical manifestation of illness. That could be, there's so many different ways, because each interpretation of what something means will affect different body tissues, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But it can also become a pattern, such as in your case, you were talking about anxiety and depression. So anxiety is a combination of feeling in some way powerless and feeling in some way attacked from the front, which can actually mean a fear of something coming towards you, what the future holds, or something like that. So that can happen, but it can also be some physical things can actually happen. I'll come on to this in a bit, but just very broadly, a lot of people feel pain. Back pain is one of the most common things that people experience, and any pain in your muscles or in your bones, or that whole sort of structural system, is to do with a self-conflict that you've got going on. Now, how often does that happen to people at work?
Exactly. And so you mentioned, is it the reticular activation system? Did I get that right? Can you explain a little bit what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the physical part of your brain. It's actually at the top of your spinal column, just where your brain stem reaches merges with the rest of your brain. There's a collection of cells there, and they're responsible for an awful lot of how you interpret the world. One of the things that they do is they actually, some of us, people who work in this industry, are aware of subconscious and conscious, etc. That in every moment, your brain is subconsciously picking up potentially millions of bits of sensory information, whereas only about 40 or 50 actually register consciously, and actually really you might only be seeing a handful of those at any one time. Well, this reticular activating system, which has been programmed throughout your life, actually is determining which bits of sensory information get through and become consciously manifested in terms of your day-to-day experience of life. So by changing how it perceives what's going on in the world, by changing your perceptions, you could be in completely the same situation, completely different experience. So someone who had this outlook of life of anxiety and might see that boss come in, expect to get bullied, expect to get picked on, whereas other people, someone else might see it as an opportunity to, promote their ideas, something else at work, or an opportunity to have fun, a bit of banter. It all depends on the way you perceive the world and which bits of sensory information actually get through. So in a way, this reticular activating system it's actually the part of your brain which is responsible for the physiological version of what's called the law of attraction. Does that make sense? It actually creates your reality because it's the sensory information that you're pulling through, and you can change that with techniques like EFT, or hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, and all, so many of basically most of the emotional and mental sort of change techniques out there are working on that reticular activating system and shifting your perception.
That's great. Yeah, that's like such a comprehensive description. I've read a description before, but like the way you just described it, like just really, really clicks. So it basically, cool. It's the physical aspect of our brain, right, that causes us to have these emotional reactions, right, based on kind of what information that we're perceiving and taking in and processing, and then our response is that emotional piece.
Yeah, it's not just the emotional bit, it's actually how we perceive reality. So if really like about it is that if, let's say, we meet skeptical clients in our line of work, don't we? People who need to see the science. Well, it is literally the way that you can show them that the law of attraction can work for them, even if they don't believe in energy and magnetism and every other aspect of it. So it's a really good thing to be able to explain, and takes, for the people who need it, who need that sort of proof, it makes sense.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. I love, it's always, even those of us who kind of believe in, non-physical power, right, of some kind,
absolutely.
It's always, it kind of puts that part of our brain that's the skeptic kind of to rest, to kind of hear the actual, okay, so what's the science? Right?
Yeah, this is the physical manifestation of the energy. So, there's levels of energy which are all connected, but this is the one which, this one's it's basically accessible to anyone. Can understand that concept once they get their head around it and realize they can change their life through changing their perception. That's
great. And you did mention the emotional freedom technique and neuro-linguistic programming, I think, and I'm going to post your website that I read in your bio in the group. But those two basically are great ways to basically reprogram is it reprogramming the chemical pathways so that you can describe it much better than I can.
Yeah, sure. I mean, NLP is one which it's been around quite a while, and I guess it's everyday. It's kind of everyday hypnosis and understanding the way the brain works as if it's a computer. So it's a model. And not that I agree with everything in it, but it has some useful stuff in it. It's all about recognizing your thought patterns and then carrying out various processes to change them. Now, EFT tapping is something very different, and you can use NLP within it. What's really good about EFT is that you are working on something which has not really been recognized by the traditional medical profession, which recognizes physical stuff going on and mental stuff going on, but you're working on the emotions with tapping techniques, EFT, matrix reimprinting, and all the other ones out there. And the emotions are really where life is, because everything that you do is either to feel more of something or less of something. Every single action you take is to get away from a painful feeling or to move more towards something that feels good to you. So that bridge between the mental and the physical is a very powerful place to be working. And when you create shifts there, then it affects everything else, whether it's physical symptoms or behavior patterns, psychological symptoms.
That's cool. That's great. Yeah, thanks for that explanation. So speaking of doing things that you love, so in terms of, a job that's making you sick, kind of what's your background and how does it connect to that topic?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been doing this since 2012. I started this practice. Before that, I was basically I was already a business owner, I was a co-owner of very similar to what you were doing. I was independent financial advisor business, which is, that's like a financial broker, but we're independent, whole of market.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I did that for 3 years, having had a career in financial services, and it was very painful. I felt very out of sync with it. It was probably the most miserable 3 years of my life work-wise. Some amazing things happened during that time. I'm very lucky. I had a very good relationship, which I'm still in, and had that time. I really started learning. I mean, I'd learned Reiki years before, but I really started learning about the energy work and having some good experiences with holistic practices. One of which was actually my son was conceived and born during that time, having been told by the GP that I wasn't going to be able to have children. So there was lots of good stuff going on. The really, the core thing is the actual work itself. Day to day was okay, and I was basically a fairly cheerful guy anyway. But when I thought about it, it just made me feel really heavy. I was medicating myself with anything I could, pretty much at the time, and I just didn't want to be at work. I was overweight. I felt certainly had a lot of anxiety, fear about the future going on. Lots of really bad money beliefs as well, which is a big thing for a lot of financial advisors. They might be quite good at helping their clients with money, but so a lot of them have this guilty secret that they can't make these psychological decisions about their own money that they can do when their money. So they are actually working with other people's and doing good things for them. But they can't do it for themselves. They end up in debt, maintaining a lifestyle which perhaps doesn't suit them as well, because it's all part of that work hard, play hard mentality. And I just felt really trapped in that work. So I learned EFT, which was amazing. I initially thought I'd become an acupuncturist. But then I actually ended up learning EFT when I found out about it, and it fits more. It still does everything you can do with acupuncture, plus the emotional responses. You can work with the emotional and mental stuff in a different way than you do with acupuncture, but it still works effectively in a very similar way. You're working with the meridian points and helping people to move energy through their body. And I used it to negotiate myself in a really calm, grounded way when I had a lot of anxiety about the work that I was doing and the people I was working with. But we ended up with a really successful outcome where everyone had a really good result. And my health took a real sort of upwards journey since then. So in particular was the overweight and the general lack of health that I had going on. And if I'd kept going at that, I think I probably would have ended up starting to manifest some really unpleasant physical symptoms that I wouldn't have wanted. And, I was eating not that good food. I wasn't bad, but, there's a lot of times when you are, drinking too much and eating too much salty food and burgers and chips and things like that. And, there's none of that's bad. If in moderation, it's all about balance really. But when you get out of sync and you're stressed, those things can start to take a toll, and you're having an unnatural sort of energy which is being created, which you crash from eventually. And I'll talk about that in a bit probably as we go through this. But we come on to when I actually look at the work now that I do, how my life's changed. I think it's just important. Now I live in Spain. I've got an amazing place here, in a really awesome community with lots of like-minded people, and great, really enjoyable education opportunities for my son. Really, and I'm now, like you, working with people worldwide to support them in creating the life that they want. And, for me, it's health, wealth and freedom are the three things that I really focus on. And I guess I started with the wealth side of things because that was my journey. I'd been a financial advisor. Holistic practitioners seem to need money support, so I was working with them with blocking beliefs, and I've now got an online course about that. But you know, what I really got into the work for, my real baby, which I absolutely love, is working with health using a process called Meta Health, which actually is different than most other things out there, which I can explain if you'd like me to.
Yeah, that would be great, because you mentioned emotional freedom technique, neuro-linguistic program, and then your journey. Like, I guess the two of us have a lot in common. I forgot about that you'd worked in financial services. I'm sure we talked about that before, but
we have in the past, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I actually forgot it was your journey as well until just now. So
yeah. Totally. Yeah,
I mean, we don't really seem the type now, do we?
I know, different, totally different, right? And if we ran into people, and this is so true probably for people who are listening, you know, if you've like really made some big shifts, you know, I mean, I live in such a different world now. I don't even cross paths with, you know, individuals. But of course, you know, it's a lot of the people who are watching, you know, are in those environments right now that just don't resonate with them. And so I think this is really helpful.
Into it. I mean, you fall into it, and then you're sort of there, and actually the job's okay on a day-to-day basis. But it's, when you look at it, you think, how did I end up here? I did not go through my childhood thinking I'm going to go and be a money broker. It's like, no, you're thinking all different things. It's almost like the sort of, is this it kind of thing. And I had beliefs like I had beliefs that this is my penance. I've got to do this because I can't think of how to make money another way. So I have to do this job I hate. And actually, you know, my conscious mind was going, you own this business. It's a good opportunity. You're building something for the future. But my heart was just like, ugh. Yeah. So I think that, you know, for people like who are watching and have those symptoms, right? I mean, anybody who's, you know, worked in financial services or any other kind of arena, maybe they are now. I mean, these are what the symptoms look like, right? And there's definitely kind of a way out of that. And so you mentioned Meta Health. So, what's that? I said the symptoms can get significantly worse as the longer you sort of stay in a situation that's out of balance with who you are. But if I'm going on to Meta Health now, I can really go into
so
that.
Tell us, because I know when you first mentioned it to me, when we first connected a few months ago, I'd never heard of it. So if you could fill us all in about kind of what that is and how's it a tool to help somebody who's really struggling with health issues related to their career?
Okay, right. Yeah. So the first thing about Meta Health is that it's not a therapy in its own right. So it's not like a process that you use to clear some energy blocks or release some emotion or change a thought pattern. What it is, it's a really detailed diagnostic process. It's a stress-based analysis process that you can use to find the root cause of stress rather than. So when a doctor says it's caused by stress, well, in the Merck manual that they use to diagnose, something between 85 and 95% of conditions have cause unknown as part of it. So they've got some great symptom treatments they can use to support people, but those aren't dealing with the root cause. And what we can do with Meta Health is find causes. So examples would be like basically, if you were, what it's important to say is each of those root causes, depending on what it is, depending on the specific kind of event that happens, which puts your body into stress, that there's an energetic response there. The event has to have been unexpected, dramatic, so it was a surprise or a shock, isolating, so you felt alone in that moment, even if there were people all around you. For example, you might be that person who felt they were being made fun of or that you were being picked on by the boss or whatever, and you had no strategy to deal with it at the time. So you didn't have a witty response on the tip of your tongue, so you internalized it. And as a result of that, you froze in the moment. Even if it was split second you froze in that moment. And that means that your body creates an adaptation to deal with it. So whereas the conventional belief, which in the sort of medical establishment and even in a lot of holistic practices, is that in some way your body has made a mistake and has gone wrong, and that's produced symptoms in your life. From the Meta Health perspective, every symptom that arises, every body tissue symptom or every psychological symptom is an intelligent adaptation, a natural adaptation by your body, like kind of like a biological program, which is trying in some way to deal with the stressful event that's happened. And so what happens is this stressful event happens, and you go into this stress phase where your adrenaline is up, you might sleep less, you might actually feel quite good during this time, but you could be tired and wired, where you're feeling lousy but you can't sleep properly and you still keep going on coffee and sweet foods and things like that. And then at some point you have an acceptance. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put a link which will show people this disease process so they can see what we're talking about afterwards. But you have an acceptance where something changes, like maybe you might realize in that moment that the boss, I'll keep going back to this boss explanation because we talked about it already, but they were just having, it was just something lighthearted, it wasn't personal. And that acceptance, then you feel okay for a while, but then the body goes into recovery mode. And this is when people normally notice the symptoms. They actually start to feel tired as the body goes into the parasympathetic nervous system takes over. My lights have just flashed. We're having a storm here as well. So if our electricity goes, then that's what it could be.
Okay.
But when you're in this recovery mode, you get the symptoms can come out, and pain would be a classic example here. So with most emotional therapies, if you're working on a lot of things with people, you can find where events started by sort of following the emotion that they're feeling back to an early childhood memory, and then releasing their emotional attachment to it, whether that's with EFT, matrix that, the hypnosis and NLP type things do it as well. I like the tapping techniques because they don't just deal with what's going on in the mind, but they really work with the physical as well and with the body. However, if you've got a physical condition such as back pain or eczema or something like that, anything at all, whatever it is, chronic conditions, ME, fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, anything like that, often, yes, they do have emotion attachment, but the emotion generally started after the physical condition came up, because it might be, if it's a case of eczema, it could be embarrassment because of how your face is looking or something like that. If it's pain, it could be distress because you're feeling the pain, but it wasn't there until the pain arrived. So the sort of conventional way of looking at this is to, what a lot of practitioners do, and they do it very well, is they go back to what was happening at the start of when the pain started, what was happening when that started, what was happening a few months before it started. And there will be emotional stuff there. So they clear that, and then the pain goes away for a while, but it comes back. Now, what we're going for is we're looking for the pain, we're going all the way back to the start of the stress before the pain kicked in. And there's a formula that we can use with Meta Health to do that, which really makes the detective work very, very accurate. And then depending on the body tissue that's affected, we can work out the kind of event it was which is causing the stress. So you've got 4 brain relays which develop as the embryo developed, and each of them is attached to certain body tissues. Brainstem, anything to do with survival. A really key thing for that might be, people often get things like IBS, stomach troubles, digestive systems, things going on. Many of these are survival things, and that could literally be to do with food, but metaphorically, because of our life now, can also be information. So someone said something which you couldn't digest, you couldn't swallow it. I felt sick when they said it. Those sorts of things that could start leading to a digestive complaint, IBS or something like that. I had indigestible anger. I just couldn't get over it. Well, those are the sorts of things we're looking for there. Then you might have events that actually where you felt attacked, and when it's attacked, then and this could be things like your life at home, your nest. So protection and attack of your nest, and in women, breasts really represent the nest. So people getting things going on, like breast symptoms going on, that can really be something to do with often to do with nests. So things going on with the family, the home, those sorts of things, children, that can really affect there. Then the third brain relay after that, which this is one which will often come up with work situations, is the cerebral medulla. And that relates to the body structure. So you're talking about a skeleton, your muscles, and those sorts of tissues in the body. And these are normally the ones where you feel a lot when things start to recover. Well, we call it starting to recover. Other people, the medical professional would call that the start of the problem. And so they've got the symptom treatments, but when you look back at the stress, then you're looking for things to do with this. Basically the structure of the body. And if it's pain and if it's in muscle and bone, we know there's a self-devaluation conflict somewhere, which I've talked about a little bit before. And that could be anything from if you're getting a lot of headaches that feel like they're in that area. Then this is different to migraines, by the way, but headaches will be, it could be a self-devaluation conflict about something intellectual. So feeling outsmarted at work. I had a good example when I was learning EFT as a trainer. I was with my sponsor, Carl Dawson, who's also the creator of Matrix Reimprinting, and I was watching him do training EFT, and I just thought, I'm never going to be as good as him. I'd never do it as well as him. And then shortly after that, I never get headaches, by the way. Shortly after that, headache. And I just knew it was an intellectual self-devaluation thing going on. So I was able to resolve that. But then back pain is often a core self-devaluation. So someone who's really doing something out of line with who they are, and they're devaluing themselves as a result of that, they might feel some pain in their lower back going on, or some lower back symptoms happening. Then there's so many others as well, like shoulders, pain in the shoulders will be self-devaluation to do with parent, partner, child. Feet to do with not moving forwards in some way. And then we also look at male or female energy. And that be some people males on the right, other people males on the left. And then we have to do a test for that, which is very easy to do.
Interesting.
So you can't always know by if someone says left, that's not always female. It often, most people it is, and it's not always if you're right-handed, you can still be what we call left-wired, in which case you're female and male or the other way around. And then we have to start looking at what those mean. So female energy could be something to do with the home or with children. Male energy doesn't have to be about a man energy in your life. It could be could even be something like if your perception puts male energy onto things like the car, it could be something to do with road rage or something like that, or it could be something to do with work, because work is often a male energy. But your business, if you're self-employed, your business could be your baby.
Interesting.
So a child, when there's something going on with their personal business. So you have to really look into these things. Pets, what do pets mean? Really interesting, and it's all subjective, but we can find out once we know the body tissue, we can start doing the detective work to find that symptom. And then the last relay, so I've come off the relays a little bit, but it's the cerebral cortex, and that is basically the skin and the outer areas of the body. And these are generally to do with separation conflicts. And eczema would be something that would come up here a lot. And the eczema is actually the recovery stage, because the skin has initially thinned during the stress time, which you didn't notice but you only notice once the acceptance has happened and the recovery. And so you could, and if you had a separation, I guess you could have a separation conflict coming up or being triggered as a result of work. So, if you felt, I don't know, perhaps I don't know, maybe you got moved departments, and your department meant you had to, so you were separated from some friends who you'd been working with for 10 years, and suddenly you had to travel half an hour extra each day. That could actually kick off a self-devaluation, a separation conflict to do with, and that might result in eczema as well. So really interesting, finding out how all these things work. And it's all based on something called German New Medicine, which has been, there's thousands and thousands of case studies which have shown this to work over and over again. And also how once you recognize it, you can move more quickly through the process and actually be on the route to self-healing.
That's great. No, I love that description. So we have a comment. So Anne is here from Southern Vermont. You're probably getting lots of snow right about now. Her comment is, this conversation comes at the perfect time. The company I worked for shut down the office last week with no warning to any of us. Right. Still in a bit of shock. Thanks for the conversation. Very helpful. Is there any, you have any advice for Anne? I mean, that's like when you just first started talking about meta health, right? You talked about kind of the shock factor, right?
Yeah. So that could be one of these unexpected, dramatic, isolating, no strategy moments. And depending on the themes and patterns in Anne's life before, so what her beliefs are, what's happened to her in her past, she could that could just slide off her, be no big deal, could be resolved. She could go through a little bit of a process. Possible something could get stuck. And it would depend, it could be a separation thing. So that could result in some sort of separation, skin-based thing, a self-devaluation thing. It might be, how am I ever going to get a job? How am I going to move forwards? An attack could be an attack on the family. How am I going to pay the bills? How are we going to, and then even going back, it could be a survival thing. So it could go in the gut, or it could be in any of the sort of core organs. How are we, how can I digest this? So depending on what's happened before, themes in life, whether anything like this, she might have seen this sort of thing happen to parents, maybe. So there's a lot to look at, but it's a lot of people will, it will be a shock. They'll go through the process and then they'll come out the other side. Some people might take it on and internalize it, and they have no way of dealing with it. And then, by looking at meta health, you can look at the interventions and start to create a plan to actually move through it. And you'd use, so that's what comes out from a meta health consultation, is that you come up with a plan, and then, I would use EFT or matrix with people. Other people use different processes. That's the beauty of it. It's like an umbrella under which all the different techniques can actually work. Even pharmaceutical interventions can be appropriate within there. Nutrition, certainly, a lot of things, someone has got IBS or a gut-based, something going on in the gut, then that's going to have been affected by their enteric nervous system, which actually controls the gut brain. And, then they're going to want to look at a diet. A lot of people benefit from an alkaline diet when they're in the recovery phase. Other people might want a GAPS diet, which really repairs the gut lining. But, we don't advise on that as a meta health consultant. We would, unless we're also a nutritional therapist, which I'm not, but I would then refer people on to, see a nutritionist and find the right diet for them to help them through the symptoms more quickly. So they work really hand in hand with nutrition. And of course, nutrition can have an emotional effect as well, because the gut is so important in that whole immune system and feelings as well. So it's a relay between the two. Absolutely. So then we look at that. We look at exercise. Could be things like yoga. What do you enjoy doing? Do you like going for walks? Why aren't you doing it in your life anymore? Perhaps you need to go out and do more of that again. Bring some playfulness back into your life. Look at new social things to do. So we look at there's one way of describing them is lifestyle prescriptions. So how could you actually change your life to so that this is no longer an issue for it? And spending more time with supportive friends, looking for another job, and it can either be, you don't always have to go and be self-employed. You can find a job that's more in line with who you are. Can you retrain? Can you find ways to retrain? Maybe someone's offering scholarships if you don't feel you can afford it. Perhaps there's someone out there who offers one scholarship every time they run a course or whatever, which quite a lot of people do. So, there's lots of different ways that you can look at to change your life, and we look at the emotional, mental ones, which is, I specialize in supporting people through that. We look at the physical, so exercise and nutrition, and that's going to be unique to each person. We look at the social and the way the interactions, and we look at the spiritual, the meaning, the values, the passion and purpose, and what they need to do to create that big impact, if that's their thing, or just to move forwards. And so it's not just about symptom treatment. We're actually looking to what's this symptom telling you? How's your life going to get better as a result of you coming out of this, and the learnings that you're going to have from it?
That's great. Yeah, it's really comprehensive. It's really comprehensive. So Sam, how can people learn more about your work, about Meta Health? If they were and like people like Anne, I'm sure there are other people that are like, wow, this is really good timing. I'm looking for some tools. What I've used in the past hasn't worked so well. How can people get in touch with you to kind of have continue that conversation?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm very happy for people to connect with me on Facebook. I've got a group called Freedom Here and Now. It's a page called Freedom Here and Now, or they can just find me, Sam Neffendorf. And that's absolutely cool. If they want to look specifically at Meta Health, then I've got a page, eftnow.co.uk. So that's eftnow.co.uk, and you can just click on the Meta Health tab on my homepage there, or you can go straight to eftnow.co.uk/meta, META, and then that will take you to the Meta Health analysis page. And what I do is I offer a 30-minute Discover Meta Health call, during which I will endeavour to I won't be able to find a specific event in that time, but I could give you a general idea of the theme behind your symptom. I could talk you through the Meta Health disease process and give you an indication of where you might be along that path with whatever it is that you've got going on, and explain how those symptoms can actually, they're not here to hinder you. They're actually here to guide you to create more of what you want in your life, what's really in tune with your values and who you really are, and then how we can actually get there, and some suggestions. And then after that, if people want to, then they can go for a full Meta Health analysis and ongoing program from there to really not just resolve their health issue, but really, and it's self-healing, by the way. I'm not a healer. They are, through this guidance, they're going to learn how their amazing body can actually heal itself, and then not just get back to being okay, but really moving forwards into having an excellent life, doing things that they love.
That's great. And so that 30-minute assessment, is there a fee associated with that, or how does that work?
Currently they are free. I probably won't be able to do that for that much longer, though. Okay, yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's really generous, just to get people going.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Any last little thing that you want to add that you haven't included? Any, I don't know, like maybe besides scheduling with you, like one little tip people can take, that they can walk away with as well?
I think, so one thing that I think is really important is understanding that it's the shocks which cause these adaptations to happen. And so, one thing that, let's say you're going to the doctors and it's important, if you've got symptoms, it is important to go and get this. The medical profession, they've got the best instruments. They can see what's going on and where it's going on in your body, and then you can make an educated decision as to what you're going to do. And we're at MetaHealth, we go for an integrated approach where you absolutely, you talk with the doctor and then you decide what you are going to do with them, and also look at the holistic side as well. But one thing is, be prepared so that if they say something that's shocking to you, a shocking diagnosis can cause another issue to actually happen, because being surprisingly told that you've got cancer, for example, can actually cause a shock, which can cause something else to happen in your body as well. So if you're prepared for those things and just be ready for something, so that when you hear something, you don't internalize it. It hasn't been one of those unexpected, dramatic, isolating, no strategy events for you. So
that's a great tip. That's a great tip. Yeah. And that's kind of where I started was, I think when I was pretty much depressed the whole time I was in financial services for about 4 years. I kind of struggled, but, and so I was seeing a therapist, which therapists can be such a great resource, right? And then finally I just went to my doctor and said, okay, I want a diagnosis. And she said, yeah, you're depressed, Connie. And I was like, okay, I'm handing in my notice. So that both perspectives can be like, just to get all those perspectives, right, can be really helpful. Yeah.
And just on that note, if your job isn't where you want to be right now, some people are happy to take that big step and move straight away, but there's other ways you can do it. You can phase yourself out of your job, and you can make it more ecological for you and your family, for example. And just knowing that you're on a journey and that things are going to change can actually start the healing process as well. So, it doesn't always have to be a screw you, I'm out of here approach. It can be, you can do it in a more gentle and manageable way, but so long as you know that you're going through a process and you're moving forwards, then that can be a great thing to do.
Yeah, and I appreciate that feedback. Yeah, that basically once you make a decision and start taking steps, then the healing does really start.
Absolutely.
Well, Sam, it was so great to have you. I'm going to post your links in the post with the video. And any of you who are watching this either live or after the fact, feel free to post any questions in here. And Sam, I'll just tag you if there are questions that people have, so they can. But it was really, really fun to have you. And I know it's nighttime where you are, and it's morning.
No, it's afternoon actually. Yeah.
Oh, it's afternoon. Yeah. So anyway, so you have a good rest of your day. Really appreciate your time, and
thank you.
Just really love.
It's been great. Really, it's been a lot of fun. So if there's anything else, I'd love to come on and talk again. If anyone's got any specific requests or anything.
Perfect. It's funny that you said that. I actually wrote down some ideas while you were talking. So cool. we'll keep talking.
Wicked. Excellent. All right. Have a good day. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Sam. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.